I don't know how much time I have in a seat, right? I don't know how much time I'll have in this role. So I'm gonna do the most I can with the time that I'm allocated. I grew up in Delaware, and in southern Delaware, and just a typical blue-collar family, and I was good at math and science, so people told me you should be an engineer. Went to University of Delaware, got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, went to University of California, Berkeley, and got a master's in bioengineering. Got my first job as a crash and safety test engineer for a Toyota Technical Center, so I was crashing cars for a living. That was pretty cool, but I was also volunteering my time with the NAACP. I was like the director of their tutoring program, and I loved it. I just absolutely love working with young people, and I just saw myself doing this full time. And so I quit my job as an engineer. I went from engineering to 7th grade math teacher, and I absolutely loved the transition. Around 2019 or so, someone's like, oh, they're moving to a district model for Howard County Public Schools. Have you ever considered being a Board of Education member? And my first response was absolutely not. I've got, my kids were 2 and 5 at the time. I saw the amount of pressure the board at that time was experiencing for redistricting. So I was like, there's just no way. The more I thought about it and the more I met with community people were like, you were meant for this work. You have the engineering background, which is like the data side. You have the educational experience, which not many board members have. And I had kids that were going into the system. And so just really after a lot of community conversations, I was like, okay, like this is something that I can do.
My name is Becky McGill Wilkinson, and I conduct education research for federal contracts.
Hi, my name is Diane Henry. I'm a stay-at-home mother of one child with autism and ADHD who's a 9th grader in Howard County Public Schools.
We met originally in a Howard County new mom support group when our oldest babies were newborns, probably. I think mine was like 2 weeks old and hers was a couple months old. So we met in that new mom support group, and weekly got together with a bunch of other new moms just to talk about being a new mom and handling babies and that kind of stuff. And we've been friends ever since. So that was over 9 years ago now. Within a few years after that, she decided, I guess someone else introduced her to this idea of like, hey, you should run for the school board. And I think she really, had decided very quickly that she was going to do it.
So I was like, who else is running? And somebody said, oh, there's this lady called Antonia, but nobody knows who she is. So I was like, well, I'll know who she is. So I'll follow her around. So which I did. I followed her to the first public forum, and I accosted her at the meeting. I was like, hello, I hear you're running for my district. What can you tell me about yourself? And that's how our relationship began.
She saw some changes that she thought needed to be made in the school system, that she saw that there were disadvantaged kids who were continuing to be disadvantaged by the school system, and she wanted to make sure that the voices of those kids and those families were communicated to the school system to make sure that their needs were being met.
She was very knowledgeable. She had taken the time because I'd spoken to previous candidates who were running, and some of them knew nothing about education. They just had a vision in their mind of what they wanted to bring to the board, but they didn't actually have student-centered ideas. So when I met Antonia, the fact that she had been a teacher at some point was imperative, because she then knew what it looked like to have kids in a classroom. And so then she could talk to more like solutions. She didn't have just her personal ideas, she had knowledge, and that was what drew me to her.
I was elected on the board in November 2020. One of the first things I saw was like I really need for a better superintendent evaluation tool. And that is around the same time that I was introduced to school board partners. When I was looking at changing the superintendent evaluation as like a first or second year board member, it was a little bit daunting, right? So School Board Partners was the reason that superintendent evaluation even came to be, because I knew that the evaluation tool that we were using wasn't right, but I didn't quite know what else to have. School Board Partners gave me access to model policies. One of the things that I really wanted to do in terms of the superintendent's evaluation was to be able to tie our public goals to that evaluation. So our public can say like, okay, I understand that our board and our superintendent have agreed upon these things. And so I can see that they are going to be driving policy there, they're going to be driving budget. And so I think we're literally like putting our money where our mouth is. We're not gonna evaluate the superintendent on something that we haven't put the funding behind. And the superintendent uplifts the goals that are in his evaluation in the public space. So we're getting more conversations that parents value, right? So they want to know if their third grader can read, is their third grader reading properly? Is their ninth grader on track to graduate? They want to have these kinds of conversations. So by putting them on the superintendent's evaluation, they're showing up in the public spaces. We're having real conversations about those items. They're showing up in budget so that our budget is more geared towards these items so we can back them. So when we go to measure them, we know that we put the money there to support the goals. The superintendent's evaluation used to just kind of be a behind closed doors thing that the board did, but now it's like, it's really impactful. So we're not just doing the evaluation just to do it. We're doing the evaluation so that it moves the school system in a positive direction. School Board Partners and School Board Partner alumni and cohort members understand that together we're all stronger, and that includes students. When I was working on the superintendent evaluation, at the same time, Catherine Haynes from Virginia was also working on the same thing. And so we just spent a lot of time kind of going back and forth. We have very similar size districts. We have similar demographics. And so we would, reach out, talk to each other about, how things are going, or what you found to be successful when, advocating for this with your board. The next thing that School Board Partners has done for me, is that I benefit from is really the coaching. Monthly, I meet with Ben and we just talk through issues. Sometimes he's a sounding partner, sometimes he's a writer for me, sometimes he's a strategizer. So just having somebody else who is removed from your district that can kind of objectively weigh in on like how you could approach these things and give you ideas, that's been helpful. I actually have a mentor from School Board Partners. I meet with her every 2 weeks, and that's been really more of the emotional support of what it is to be a board member, because it's lonely. It is a lonely job. You get elected and then, people have needs and wants, and there's not really a lot of checking in with how you're doing and how you're navigating.
I think the qualities that Antonia has that make her a good school board member, I think ultimately she's looking out for children and families beyond just her own. I think that's really important in a school board member, that she's considering the big picture and how the actions of the school board affect other children and other families besides her own. I think that she listens to the community as well to find out what it is that they need from the school board, from the school system. And I think that she works really well with the school system to make sure that they're achieving their goals and also meeting the needs of the community.
Antonia has been a breath of fresh air for me because she's always trying to look outside of the box and see what we can do better as a school system. How can she bring information to our school system that is useful for them? And I think that's something that I appreciate about her. And I just admire her being able to withstand no matter what the community throws at her.
So my vision for the students of Howard County, and including my own kids, is really to say that they felt valued in our school system, that they received the preparation necessary to be a functional human as they graduate from Howard County school systems. My advice to any new board member or someone thinking about becoming a board member is to find a strong network. The work is hard, but you're not the only person that's grappling with this idea or this concept in the nation. So find a good network and really lean on your network. Do not feel that you have to do this work alone. because it can feel lonely at times. I will say my network that I found was school board partners. So if you are really serious about radical inclusion and you are willing to work with people that are like-minded and that will challenge you and support you at the same time, then school board partners is definitely where you want to be.